Hey guys, welcome to another 6 Sages Gaming Deck Spotlight, and today I have for you a very aggressive Final Fantasy VII based aggro list. Now this is a list that finished top 8 out of the 107 player Japan Open, I believe it was, and a lot of people have been asking for either a Final Fantasy VII themed deck or a deck that's more aggressive based and that just doesn't focus on light cloud. So you'll see this has a lot of low cost backups. So this deck is all about getting out the gate early, having a couple cards to ping and get your follow-up damage in, and make sure that your attackers are getting through. So first we're going to talk about the forwards, then we're going to talk about the summons, wrap it up with the backups, and I do have a few cards I'd recommend as well, but we'll cover those right at the end. So let's get right into it. Starting off, we have the 2-drop Barret from the starter deck. 2-drop 6k is pretty good aggressive stats. Then he has Grenade Bomb to deal 2,000 damage to all forwards your opponent controls. This is great because it lets him trade up with a 8k for free, but also you'll see there's a very key theme in this deck that wants to have these different effects that can ping off the rest of the damage and help your guys trade up. So a lot of this deck is focused on being able to get in that little extra bit of damage or just being able to pump up your guys and survive. So Barret absolutely fills a critical role in with his Grenade Bomb ability, and then again, just being a 2-drop 6k is absolutely amazing. A card that has been seeing a lot more play out of Japan is Red 13, and I have to imagine this is because of his Cosmo Memory ability to deal 6,000 damage to all forwards your opponent controls. They have a very heavy Golbez meta, and it seems a lot of people here in the States are having to face against Golbez, and this card is expensive, don't get me wrong, but an absolute amazing follow-up. If they break Golbez, you can easily board wipe them with this effect. And it's not to go unnoted, but his first ability can pump one of your guys to help push through damage, or it can pump one of your opponent's forwards so land can get through, because you can pump them up to like a 10k and then land gets into free damage. So Red 13 is certainly a versatile card, and a lot of this is going to be meta dependent. I think this card can be substituted for a 2-drop Tifa if you want to say get the lower curve. But ultimately, I think it's in a pretty good spot in the meta right now if you're seeing a lot of Golbez. And again, this and Grenade Bomb can do some serious damage to your opponent. Just a great anti-aggro card that whenever you take damage, deal 5,000 damage or something. Again, you can help finish it off with Grenade Bomb even on your opponent's turn because those can be instant. And you'll see a little bit later on, we do play the 6-drop Cloud instead of Light Cloud. Making this a 3-drop 8k attacker is a very, very strong spot to be in. And again, their opponent doesn't want to crack back because they risk about losing something if they have a lot of smaller guys on the field. 2 of Land kind of goes without saying, this card just belongs in every single red deck. One of the cards I will recommend that I think this deck really needs if you're going to be playing Land, at least a 1 of, it makes sure that he survives in combat. So you can, again, buff one of your opponent's forwards so Land gets through with Red 13. But ultimately, I would like to see a couple more battle tricks. A Singleton Gapal, you'll see again that we have a lower curve. We're generally going to be flooding the field with a bit of guys. And this is great just to cast on your turn, give them all plus 4k, and just turn everything sideways and make it a living hell for your opponent. Interesting choice is a 1 of since we can't tutor for it or anything, but I think I'd like to see 2 for the way that this deck goes. Vanille, absolutely critical in this type of deck because we are playing a ping-to-base deck. So if they're playing Minwu, of course it's going to shut down this deck pretty hard. You'll see that we're playing 2 of her and 3 of her summon. So if they're not playing Minwu, if they're not playing a water-based deck, and you see again that we are going to be playing the starter Cloud, which I'll talk about in a minute, this is an 8k attacker that you don't care if it dies. So this is just going to keep swinging for free damage every turn, and then you just keep getting rid of bikes in the decks that you don't need it against. So absolutely a key card in this type of deck because it fills 2 very important roles. Again, speaking of who's going to be your main attacker and just being able to get through more damage is Guy. 4-drop 8k with Brave is nice, but then more importantly, if you're expecting a lot of ice in your meta, he can't be dulled by your opponent's summons or abilities. So again, when we have Cloud on the field and we make him a 9k Brave attacker that just keeps pinging every turn, your opponent can't get rid of him, absolutely great to be able to get in multiple points of damage. Now the card that I've been really wanting to see more play, and is absolutely why I'd recommend playing 2-drop Tifa, but more on that later. Furion is a great card for early tempo plays that let you trade up cards. So let's say very early on you attack with Barret, they block with something that they spent 4 or 5 CP on. You follow up with Furion, ping it off for the rest of the damage, and it puts a huge tempo swing in your favor if you successfully can kill one of their guys. So Furion is a card that actually the last tournament, I think the last 2 tournaments out of Japan, has been seeing a lot more play, this one specifically. So I'm not sure if it's to answer all the snows that were popping up in the ice decks, or what might be a direct counter for it. Again, just dealing 4,000 damage is something is pretty good, but it is certainly a card worth checking out in your locals and seeing how it plays into it. A card I wasn't totally in love with, but I can understand, one of Vincent. So we're never using his special, but again, he becomes a 9k with first strike, and if we have Cloud on the field, he becomes a 10k first strike. So chances are, unless your opponent has a Titan or something, this card is killing whatever is getting in front of it. So it's just a nice late game attacker that just can keep turning sideways without punishment, unless they have something very specific. And then lastly, Cloud. Now the one alteration I did make to this deck is I added a 3rd Cloud because I didn't have the 3rd Bahamut. So that is the one substitute in this deck. So this card has been overlooked a bit. Obviously making it cheaper. If you make this a 4-drop 9k, is fine. And his special is okay. Choose a 4, deal at 8,000 damage. That's still going to kill most things in the game. But what's really being overlooked is each time a forward you control attacks, it gets plus 1,000 power. And I'll be completely honest, I missed that originally. And if you've been playing this game as much as we have, and if you've been trying out the different like Maria backups that give your team plus 1,000, giving an attacker plus 1,000 power is significant. That's not something to cough at and throw it under the bus. That's actually relevant in a lot of different matchups. So again, being able to turn your early game Baird into a 7k attacker, giving a little bit of power boost. Maybe you followed up with Fury and you're able to kill something of theirs that's a 10 or 11. So just literally anything that they're going to be playing. There's a lot of utility in this card, so I think it's something people maybe need to revisit. Going into the summons, it played at 1 of Bahamut Fury. You can discard a card, deals 7, otherwise it deals 5. Interesting choice. I still haven't been in love with the card, but I understand that it's literally just Brynhildr 4 is what it's in there for. As I mentioned, Vanille Summon, this is, again, in there because we need to be able to have answers to certain backups, or it just lets us have Vanille that just keeps attacking as an 8k and keep bringing her back. So it's very, very versatile card in this specific deck. 3 of Brynhildr, again, I don't think there's any kind of debate here. Every fire deck is going to be running 3 of it. Dealing 7,000 damage as an EX burst, and 3 is great. And then the last card, which I didn't have a 3rd of, but should technically be a 3rd of for the last starter Cloud, is Bahamut. If you guys have been playing, you see how good this is. The exile effect, or remove from game effect, is super relevant against Golbez, but in these lower curve aggro decks like we do see in, say, Fire Ice, there's a lot of times where very early on you can just set up a board state, and if you just draw the Bahamut, you're going to get rid of their 2 best blockers, and you're going to be able to push the game in your favor. I am still a huge proponent of only running 2 of this because you never want to see this early. You only want to see it mid and late game. And in card theory, that means you should run 2, not 3. But I can understand that people just always want to see it. They always want to see it early when they, if the game goes a certain way, so they have like an emergency Bahamut if they really have to. I'm really torn on it, but I'm still in the 1 to 2 category, depending on what your meta is looking like and depending on what your opponents are going to be playing. So that is just a little card theory side note on that one. Then lastly, we're going to talk about some backups. 3 Evoker, you'll see again, this deck plays a lot. This entire backup is basically 1, 2, and 3 drops. So it's, again, very early, spam out some backups, play the rest of your cards from the top of your deck, and just being able to keep coming out, guys. So 3 of those Evoker, 2 of the Earth. Again, it's just a great turn 2 play once you follow up with like a Red Mage or something. Speaking of, Red Mage, just great for making guys unblockable. So again, as I said, with being able to push to the last points of damage with land, making your opponent have to block unfavorably, where then you can kill it with a Furion or something. There's just a lot of utility that Red Mage gets to put into this deck. Another spicy choice is Black Mage. And again, the importance of why we were running 3 bike. You have to put in the break zone, which is kind of the bad part, but it does deal 4,000 damage to a forward. So again, being able to attack with those early guys, being able to finish off a forward that got hit by Cecil, there's a lot of utility in Black Mage, where usability really lets us ping off several different cards and can really make your opponent leery from attacking. A 1 of Talma, just a cute addition. It can give you one of your guys pseudo haste, and what I mean by that is you can put Cloud in at the end of your opponent's turn, then it can attack on your turn. Only a 1 of, so it was certainly interesting. Speaking of more ways to be aggressive and to push through damage, 3 Monk. Put it in the break zone and give a forward plus 2k power. So again, if you're giving something plus 1,000 with Cloud and then plus 2,000 with this as a possible backup, your opponent is going to be in a really bad spot with this combination. So Monk, Cloud, the couple of the other summons, there's a lot of different ways we can get an extra damage and punish our opponent for it. One of Jesse, very interesting that only a one of because it can tutor for a lot of your Final Fantasy VII copies, and so this is just one extra version of this card, of any card you want. So you could, in theory, running quote-unquote 4 Red 13s or running 4 Clouds, what have you. Tutor cards will always be playable. They're always going to be great. I would very much expect to see all these tutor cards from the first 3 starters we have, and then once we get them in the next starters in June, those tutors are always going to see play, you know, at least as a one-of. And then lastly, Mustadio, just a great card that can break something. 5 cost is a little bit much, but again, if it's breaking something, hopefully we're going to be winning the game or getting an extra point of damage. And it's an EX burst, so it's just good value if it's off the top. And if you guys know how much I love Odin because of the random break effect, Mustadio absolutely fills that role in the Earth-based decks. Now I want to talk about some cards I was surprised not to see in the list that I could absolutely see. Tifa. It's a 2-drop haster, so if you're going on the play, it lets you get in that first point of damage. And again, we're already playing 3 Furion in this deck, so we can attack on the first turn. It goes back to our turn. Let's say your opponent has to play something that's like an 8K because they had to put a 4 down, they don't want to take damage. If you have Furion in your hand, you can just attack with Tifa, they're going to block, and then you kill it off with Furion. So now your opponent is down the card that they just spent all those resources on, and you've just traded into a 4-drop 8K. So absolutely would like to see room for Tifa in here. This card is a little bit more living the dream, but I am a greedy man. When Magus enters the field, deal 3,000 damage to all your forwards. Your opponent's forwards, sorry. So if you're playing, again, Cosmos Memory, you're playing the Grenade, Barrett's Grenade, there's a way that you're just spreading out this AoE damage, and it's a lot of work, but again, it's very, very cute to board wipe your opponent with being able to deal up to 9,000 damage to everything. So I would like to see this in some number. It's a 3-drop, so it's at the technically higher curve for your backup, so I see why it's not. But certainly something to consider. And then lastly, Land's favorite backup. She's just always a one-of. So if I am playing any red deck ever going forward, I'd like to see a 2 land one of her package, just because the backup effect is so strong with Land, because once they block, you can then pump it, he's going to survive combat, and it's just a way to hurry up and keep getting in 1 point of damage. And not to be missed, she's also an EX burst, so it does feel bad if you only have 1 and then she gets put into your damage zone, but ultimately she's just a free card search, even if that happens. So it is something that might be, again, depending on your meta in the sense that maybe you don't even want to run Land for whatever that reason might be, but I think it's something that's certainly worth considering, and a card that should be 2-1 split in every red deck. So that's all I have for you guys today. That is our more aggressive version for the Final Fantasy VII deck. Again, I would add a Tifa in there. Poor little Tifa hanging out. But I think overall this is a very good start for a lot of people to go off of. Again, people were... they might be having the Final Fantasy VII starter decks, and this honestly isn't that expensive of an upgrade, and is a pretty good, well-positioned deck right now. You know, obviously the draw's going to go a little bit in your favor if you're going against Golbez and you need to hit the right card at the right time, but I mean, that's trading card games in a nutshell. So if you guys are looking for a more aggressive-based Final Fantasy VII deck, we absolutely recommend checking this one out. So thank you very much for watching, guys. Let us know in the comments below what kind of changes you would make to the deck. Maybe there's a Fire or Earth card that I missed. I just quickly wanted to grab a few more cards to give my thoughts on it. And then let us know what other decks you want to see. I know Opus 2 is around the corner, but we have covered a lot of different decks so far. Waterfire I know is a huge one a lot of people are asking for, but we will do that as soon as Opus 2 is out. I have a list I want to use. I think it's going to be a fun brew. I'm not going to say competitive, but absolutely a blast to play. So thank you very much for watching, guys. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, all that great stuff, and we'll catch you on the next 6 Sages Gaming Deck Spotlight. Have a good one.